we're here to talk about the big changes with iOS 14. So I'm sure all of you have mobile phones. A lot of you probably have Apple devices. And so we're going to be talking about what the impacts are for you personally, as well as you as your business and you as a client service. I saw a lot of different people from different types of organizations here today on the registration list. So hopefully we cover a lot of this, both broad enough, but also specific enough for your questions. So just a little briefly about Part and Sum, if you're not familiar, if this was passed along to you by someone else. We are a digitally native strategy firm. We focus on these three areas. People come to us for a variety of things. The first one is innovation. So we help brands of different sizes develop new opportunities, solve complex problems like navigating this weird ad space we're going to be talking about today, and then reimagine their value, as well as strategy. So kind of planning from a consumer's perspective, what's next, helping people make more thoughtful and deliberate decisions, as well as connecting that to the reality of the internet, which is the last one. So we think sort of big picture stuff sometimes too, but also getting the hands-on in terms of how to actually connect all the dots to make a business grow today. And so that's really about what we're gonna be talking about a lot today, because that's what's shifting. And yeah, what's shifting? It's crazy, right? So much of the fundamental nature of the internet is based upon advertising. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, publishers that aren't like paywalled. Everything is based around the idea of attention, and that you, a individual user, your eyeballs and your time and your behavior online is a thing that can get traded around through a bunch of different exchanges, and that the data that you give off is what helps people find that you are the person they want to buy the attention from, rather than everybody else out there, right? And so that's a big piece of what's changing is some of the fundamental nature of how that internet works. And that's going to have implications beyond. I mean, we're talking about big players here: Apple, Facebook, Google, other folks getting tensions around what privacy looks like. And so those are going to have big impacts both on digital marketing, your business, and we have some ideas, early ideas around how to navigate. This stuff's actively happening as we're talking. So there's still a lot to learn, but we're hoping to figure some of that out right now. So, for the longest time, consumer data collection was the Wild Wild West. It's only two wilds there, but I love Will Smith, so I threw in an extra one. Tech companies would just, grab your data as much as possible, and they'd find ways to do it. And there's been instances where they knew more about it, and it continually bubbles up as issues that people have had with that. Throughout the world, and different places have cracked down on it in different ways, from GDPR to California practicing its sort of Privacy Rights Act, Trump being nervous about geopolitical issues with TikTok, WhatsApp most recently going through plans to connect their data all the way to Facebook, and being sort of stunted in their efforts there. Google is removing third-party cookies from their browsers by the end of the year. They said they pushed it back a little bit further. They're rolling out their own new things called Flock, which is sort of collecting data in new ways and packaging it up. Sort of, we'll see how effective that is and how we can use that. But that's a bit of a conversation for another day. And then Apple is the big one that we're going to talk about today. They're launching this new privacy labels and changing how things can be tracked from your mobile device. And one can only assume this might roll out to desktop as well, and what implications that might have. And they're really ready to pull the trigger on this whenever they want to. It's all ready to go for them. So here's their official statement around it. It's likely to happen around February 16th is the rumors that we hear on the streets around it. They're making this change, and the big change that's happening is going from a opt-in, sorry, I always get these two words, opt-out to opt-in. So it used to be if you wanted your data not to be collected, you could go into your settings and change that. It was, you had to dig down deep. And as we all know about user experience, if it's not like right there and a big button right in front of you, like we all usually make the worst decisions for ourselves personally. And so this is a big change, right? To to let people, basically say, yes, I would like you, big tech company, to follow everything I do in this app and connect all the dots to everything I'm doing around the web. You have to actually choose to do that now rather than it just kind of being done before. So the difference is that, at some reports, it's 30% of people opt out, where we're estimating probably somewhere between 10 and 15 will opt in the future. So it's a big shift in terms of the privacy that's happening. Now, it's going to have the these huge effects across everything that data is used for across the web. And if you work with Part and Sum or you work online, you talk about data a lot, and data is often a very abstract thing. It sounds heady, it sounds mystical in some ways, but it's really not, right? It's concrete things that are being tracked from users within individual moments and across things, and there's different levels of data and fidelity, but the big thing that's happening here are these two changes that happen with iOS 14. The first one is you have to, if you are an app maker, you have to put this thing that's here on the left with the pink circle around it. That is what we're calling, and everyone's calling, the privacy nutrition label. And it's actually pretty great for consumers, right? You can see what data is linked to you. You can see what data is being tracked around the web, what we're giving up, right? What you're giving up to join. And the other one is that on the right-hand side there is the actual notification of you opting in or opting out of being tracked across devices and other websites. So, or rather, across other websites. And so you can allow the app to take your data and take it other places, or you can ask it not to track that. And again, like we're saying right there, that being popped up without any conversation on what the value of it is, that's going to change a lot of how people think about the web. Like if you ask most people how Facebook makes money, they like advertising, but they don't know that there's an exchange there of their personal data being passed around. And so this is going to make these transactions much more apparent. And it's unclear whether or not you as an app developer will someday be allowed to ask for hey, do you want to pay for this app, or do you want to give your data away for free? Those are hypothetical features we don't know, but it's going to change that value exchange 100%, because now it has to be made deliberately, and so people are going to think about it more. Is a big thing. So here's some examples of the types of things that your device captures, and the things that could show up on a on one of these privacy nutrition labels. And you can actually go see these. Some of these are live already in the App Store. When you update, if you have an app and you have to actually update it, now it's now any new release you have to do this. So you can see some of these make a lot of sense for the type of app you are, but there's always why is this app tracking my health and fitness? It's strange, and I think that's what it's designed for, is that you can actually look at what information you're giving to different people around there. I just want to remind everyone again that you can drop Q&A questions, and we'll be taking them at the end. So feel free to drop those in as we go along here. So all this is good news, I would say, for users. I think transparency is good. I think, how many of us have actually read terms of service or privacy policies? Not that many, but this makes it snackable. It makes it a uniform way of doing it, and I feel like that's good. I think it'll make people more conscious of what they're giving away, and those things I think are good for the world. The bad news is that it's also what we use as marketers to paint a picture of people. You think of all those data points that we just talked about here. Those are things that either we have consciously need to know to make decisions, or that a big machine learning algorithm, monstrosities like Facebook have been able to deliver special things to people at the right time, right moment, to connect the dots and drive business results, especially for small and medium-sized businesses. So that's changing for good and for bad. So, what does this mean for advertisers? So if we're losing this thing called IDFAs. And we're not losing them, but again, we're losing them because only 10 to 15% of people on iOS devices will do it. This doesn't affect Android. This doesn't affect desktop computers or other devices. But what it does is really those iOS ones, and you know, mobile's quite large if you've checked your site traffic these days. And so what is IDFA? Well, it's a identifier for advertisers is what it stands for. And it's a way of actually tracking individual device usage across platforms, apps, and technology. So this is sort of a user journey that's classic in an e-commerce sense. It's cowboy themes because of our title of this webinar. Thank you, Julie. So imagine that you are, you know, or imagine that you as an advertiser want someone to click to your boot page on a category page. They do that. You're able then to track that person around and show them, you know, your, because you can follow that person, you can show them that best-selling boot, and then you can see when that person clicked on an ad, saw it, or the amount of times that they had to see it before they, you know, came and abandoned a cart, and you can show them a different message then because you saw they made it to that part of your site. And you could continue until they made a purchase. And then you can say, oh, well, that person made a purchase. I can transmit that data, all about them that I know, into my customer base and pass it on to back to someone like Facebook. And they can improve their targeting to find other people like that. This is how the advertising on the internet has been so far working. And it's, you know, pretty powerful. But a lot of that's changing. Without these IDFAs, advertisers are going to see big changes in these three areas. One is targeting. You know, you're going to have a harder time actually finding the people you want to, because Facebook doesn't have all of those bits and pieces anymore around it. And so you might not be able to find the exact person you're looking for. There's also going to be changes with conversion measurements, because you won't be able to see when someone went from one space to another space because that information isn't being tracked. So you can't track as far down your funnel, and we'll talk a little bit about this later too, and how you can see where someone comes from one ad to this thing, to this message, to this landing page, to this, all the way down, and that data can get funneled back to a single platform. And then optimization. So much, we hear AI, we hear machine learning, we hear all those things. So much of what delivers the value of programmatic today is the ability to connect these pieces and just show a lot of stuff, and it auto optimizes. A lot of that is changing as well. So the digital ad industry is being shaken up, and there's not a lot of noise out there for a lot of people. We haven't heard much from Google. You know, maybe they have all this Android data. Maybe they feel safe. They have all that search data. We haven't heard much from Snapchat, or it's also very mobile heavy, obviously, and or Pinterest, TikTok. A lot of them maybe are planning something soon. Maybe they're waiting to see how Facebook things pan out. I know there's actually a few folks I saw on our registration list from both Google and Snapchat. So if you all send me any information you know about this, we'll be sure to forward it to anyone else on the call as well. But we do know someone's making a big stink about it, and that's our friends at Facebook.
I actually have a great question, if I can interject.
Sure.
That's worth addressing now, because it's a big question. So somebody asked, is this specific to apps or to all digital marketing? And I think, you know, the key thing to understand here is that this change to apps is having a downstream impact on all digital marketing. So to Jim's point earlier about making targeting more challenging, sort of taking away some of the magic that we used to get out of lookalike audiences, which always performed really well, and some changes to our ability to optimize because of this change that is app focused.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
I wanted to answer that one now, because I think that's really important for people to understand.
It's diversifying, because Google hasn't announced this stuff for Android, although we can see where the world is heading with changing cookies. It's not that Google is not going to track you around the web. They are just changing them being from third party and open, and they're coming up with their own mechanisms to get basically there's a lot of still consolidation happening, and each of the players kind of want to own more of the ecosystem. So it's a little less open to Facebook's point, but at the same time, there are certain pieces of the web that still potentially will work. It's just pieces of data are being lost. So does that mean that you can still track those 10 to 15% of people all the way through their mobile device, but are those your customers or not? Is your customer the ones that opt out? Are your customers on Android? These are the questions. They're going to be it's going to be diversified. It's going to be messy for a while, because a lot of this has been built up and standardized over a few years. And when something big like this happens, and that's why you see Facebook, their business model, they made over $70 billion in 2019, and only 1 billion of that was not advertising. So you can see why they're a little nervous about this future world and what it might mean to them, and what it might mean to small businesses too. But they certainly have their interest at heart, probably first. So how is Facebook Ad Manager changed? And the reason we're talking about Facebook specifically is because they're the ones that have been most vocal. They're the ones that are putting out a lot of information. Other people it's not quite clear what will happen, but they're also the ones with things like Instagram and Facebook being most used on mobile devices. Messenger, a lot of that is very mobile first technology, and in which case, well, we're seeing that that's where, why they think they're losing a big chunk of what they'll be able to provide value to advertisers with. So these 4 changes are the ones that are happening. Attribution windows are changing, and some of these, they're happening at the same time. And so whether or not they're correlated directly with this change, they're definitely thinking about the future. So I'll just say that sort of with a grain of salt, but attribution windows are changing. New ad limits are happening. Limitations on conversion events, and new conversion API integration, which is sort of the new pixel. Attribution windows are limited, and benchmark metrics will drop. It's just because we won't be able to see everything anymore. Now, granted, a lot of people said that Facebook and Instagram would over attribute things anyway, and potentially that's true, and they build up that value. It's in their interest to do it, and so there's some pros and cons to not being able to see it. But I'd say anytime that you're losing data and that you can't see it, it's probably in the small businesses, not in your interest. Before, things were 28 days, right? From a click, you could see, and Facebook would make sure that if a purchase happened, or add to cart, or whatever you were watching along your journey, download, anything like that, you'd be able to see that within 28 days, 1 day within a view, right? Now it's shrinking down to 7-day click window to one day view attribution. And what's the effect of this in terms of seeing the performance of the channel? It's going to change things by around 20% from our own. This is a calculation that Part and Sum did, from being able to look at a bunch of different data and map out what your data looked like before and what your data looked like now. It's going to change 20% of what was attributed to the platform. Does that mean the platform is not still providing that value? It probably is if you don't change much, but we don't know. That's the thing, is we start to lose those things, and losing means it's harder for us to make some decisions. The next one, the number of ads a business can run will also be limited. So this is before, you as a business could basically put up as many ads as you wanted to within your ad manager for Facebook. You could do a whole bunch of other stuff. They're shrinking that down to these numbers on the right hand side here. And a lot of it's dictated by how much you're spending. Now, the reason for this, in our opinion and from rumors around, is that basically Facebook wants you to put less ads up so that they can show them more time. So the more ads you have, and if you're putting a small budget behind it, you're dividing your budget amongst your ads. So it's giving their platform less time to learn, because now they don't have the data from external sources. They're going to rely more on their own app data to be able to make decisions around what to show, how well it's performing, when not to show it, who to show it to. And so they want less complexity and less scale in the size of what they're doing. Now, you put a lot of money behind it, you can obviously go up to a whole bunch of ads. This is a continued consolidation of different types of campaigns and what Facebook's looking at. So these are not surprising, and I'd say, like, you should be probably doing this already. It's a best practice now, but just to let you know that this is a change that's happening.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
Just to be clear about some of the estimates we have here, we ran numbers, and with this change in attribution window, we believe your benchmarks will drop. I think we believe our benchmarks will drop around 20%. But then additionally, on top of that, you have to remember that there's this like 70% opt out.
Yes. Yeah. So this is just for if everything stayed the same today and you changed your attribution for at least the data that we have access to, it's around 20% now. Again, this also hurts longer sales cycle businesses. So that usually typically means higher end or more complex sales cycle businesses that you might not be able to see in that window as well. So unclear, how that will actually affect like optimization and other pieces of it. The next change that's happening is that each business will be limited in conversion types and metrics will drop. So before you could, with things like the Facebook Pixel, you could track events off Facebook conversion events like subscribe to this newsletter, add to cart, make this purchase. So I could see someone go from Facebook seeing this ad all the way to buying my product or downloading my app, in which you could do these nice holistic measurements, things like ROAS, cost, very clear cost per acquisition tied to specific ads, allowed you to make lots of decisions, conversion rate, things like that. All within Facebook. Those are going to go away in the capacity that they are now. There are going to be potentially some conversion events that you'll still be able to have. Rumor is that there's going to be 8 of them that you'll be able to set up on your site, so you can choose what 8 those are. For standard events like Shopify, you can make those certain things. The challenge is that, again, those will be optimized for the people that have IDFAs opted in, and they're still you're able to track it. So for the vast majority of iOS users, you're not going to be able to see that anymore. So we haven't seen yet how on the actual back end how this will work, but most likely it means that Facebook's only going to allow you to optimize for things on their platform, or maybe one direct something connected within a single session. So I click on this ad and I go to the site. You could try to go all the way to purchase potentially and make that your thing, but unless you have a direct response style business that makes the majority of your sales the first time someone visits in the first session, that's probably, you're going to lose. If they leave, you're not going to be able to follow them anywhere. So that this is going to be a big change for the types of measurements that you're going to be able to see, and the types of conversion events that you can set up your campaigns to be able to run. The conversion API is going to help with some of that, but again, it's going to show Facebook that a conversion happened. It won't show them who, so they're going to lose that personally identifiable information. So a little bit more about that. So the conversion API used to be with Facebook's Pixel, you could see one-to-one, at least Facebook could. Again, a lot of this is Facebook knew a lot about your customers. You knew a little bit about them still. They were able to see, I showed an ad, this is who converted, with that kind of transparency. Now they're not going to be able to see that. They're going to be able to see there was a conversion that happened and it was happened by this person, and they may try to piece it together. These are everyone out there, I'm sure, trying to find ways to make the current system of the internet not completely break, but TBD on how that's going to be done. There will be some statistical relevance, right? You can take that 10%, you can do a bunch of stuff with it, and you can try to model that. That's probably somewhat what they'll try to do. The conversion API can be implemented through like a partner like Segment, which is a data layer that you can put on your site. WooCommerce is a partner of theirs to start off with. It's interesting to note that Shopify is not. Currently, you're able to not just drop in this conversion API, you have to have a developer set up to do it. And it's interesting to see that because
no conspiracies.
There's no conspiracies, but there might be.
And it's not that complicated. Just send it to your developer.
Yeah,
they can do it.
It's not that bad. So a lot about what Facebook's doing. What does this mean for you in your business, right? What's changing for you? We've got a few different ideas here that we're just going to walk you through, sort of some bigger fundamental ones. Our POV in it. I just want to point out that all this is early. Again, February 16th hasn't happened. If potentially Apple might do the same thing that Google did and kick the can down the road. I mean, there's a lot of politics at stake with these things, and a lot of big players, and a lot of money, and a lot of reasons that other people, things might happen. And what happens after this rolls out, we don't we don't 100% know. These are a lot of assumptions that we have. Obviously, test and learn is going to be continually to be a good thing to do in a world of complexity and with a lot of unknowns. Retargeting. So Facebook users, the challenge here is that Facebook can no longer see what websites are browsing in an iOS device, right? So I open up, even if you were on your Chrome browser on your iOS phone or your Safari, Facebook was able to see your conversion events on other devices and connect it back to you. That's not going to happen anymore in the same way. So, our POV on this is that you need to shift away and get more creative around how you think about retargeting. And there's ways to be more innovative with it. It means that, can you come up with ways to create more own data and basically retarget through things like your own SMS and your email? In some ways that is retargeting because they engage with you. Could you retarget exclusively on Facebook for people that engage with you on Facebook? Likes are back, everybody. Follows are back. They are an important thing because they're a small way to get someone to engage with you before they leave the platform. Leaving the platform, unless someone's ready to buy, you potentially lose information there and lose your data. So finding the way to do it where you're going to be able to track that person is going to be the name of the game. The to-dos here are integrate that Facebook's conversion API so you have it. If you don't have a customer data platform, we recommend segments. There's costs with that, so it depends on the size of your business.
And to be clear, because this bullet point's a little confusing, you can integrate that Facebook conversions API directly into your website or into your analytics platform.
Yes. The nice thing about segment is you can pull that data into your own data warehouse, do other things with it if that becomes part of your long-term strategy and your approach. So what should you do if you start to see a decline in quality traffic? Well, you can optimize for engagement on the platform. Like I said, you can build up retargeting pools of people that have engaged with, say, your organic content and other things that are going on Instagram and Facebook before, again, trying to move them to your site. You can create instant experiences, which is a type of ad on a place like Facebook where you can retarget them and interact with them if they interact with that itself. And then you can build retargeting systems for newsletter subscribers and things like that. So if you're adding, you'll see this as a theme, creating probably new, more engaging ways to get users to opt in to give their information directly to you rather than to the big guys. That then you can take that information and create retargeting pools out of that. So you'll still be able to take your first party data and put them into places like Facebook. You'll be able to retarget those people specifically. Now, granted, I don't know about you, when last time you updated your Facebook email address, but mine was a long time ago. I was in my college. So you might not be able, the email address you use today and what you buy things with might not be the same. So there's going to be, again, loss in data. And that's basically the world that we're looking at, is incomplete pictures of customers.
Another way of thinking about this is, first of all, it says if you start to see quality traffic decline, which I think is important, because our recommendation is that your approach is not to try to get ahead of this or guess what's going to happen. See how this impacts your marketing and then respond to it and think about, how am I going to push people down the funnel? Am I going to focus on doing that within the Facebook ecosystem, or am I going to focus on doing that on my owned and operated platforms where I can own that first party data, make that decision, and then redesign your funnel.
Yeah, we have a whole slide that says don't panic, because a lot of unknowns here, and especially small and medium-sized businesses don't have a lot of power in this world. So playing it and seeing, Facebook wants your ad dollars still. So you're going to have to see how they can handle it, and best practices will emerge. We're just in a state of, snow globe being shaken up, and we don't know how messy it's going to get. Lookalike audiences. So this has been, the way of targeting for every direct consumer business. They outperform everything else. It's letting Facebook decide who your customer is besides you deciding who your customer is, because it's based on your own data, right? They've been able to create highly specific, highly targeted audiences, and you have reaped the benefits of those. Our perspective is it's not going to change our ability to put that data in and create lookalikes, but with the loss of data on their sides, the effectiveness of them being able to pinpoint people may not happen there anymore. So we need to rely on affinity and demographic. There's more contextual advertising, us showing up in places where people are thinking about the types of products and services that you have. So the to-dos here, again, are waiting to see out. I know that's not the best one, but it's also like, we don't know how much this is going to affect. Facebook, even though they're losing a bit of this data and they're really angry about it, they have a whole lot of data. They have all the stuff that's happening in their app. They have everything that's happening on the web. They have, partner data that they'll probably find other ways to buy, and they are doing probably a bunch of other stuff that we don't even know about, for good and bad. If you start to see the quality of your traffic decline here, again, update those snapshots of your audience. We recommend doing that a few times a year, or if you're growing really fast, you're tapping into new audiences, segmenting those out, trying new ones. That's continually a best practice. We'll see how that affects. And then I think, acquiring users, that are most similar to those engaging on the platform is probably another one to look at. Trying to get them not to, warming them up first on a platform before trying to convert someone. And by warming, I mean just making them aware, making them care about your brand before bringing them off Facebook. Optimizations and conversions. So the challenge here is that, as Facebook can't see that, their algorithm won't be able to optimize for events that they can't see. If they can see, oh, this type of person always makes it to purchase, we can show those ads to people that are more likely to do that. That's going to be harder to do. So metrics like ROAS, cost per acquisition, purchase conversion value are going to have to be calculated in other ways, because Facebook's not going to just plug and play them, because they're not going to be able to see that. They're going to be able to see the number of conversions. They won't know which ones 100% they drove. They won't know which ones they showed ads to. And so there's going to be more complexity, not less, in your own data. And so it means probably more about getting more control over it. And this is, honestly, this has been the history of marketing in general. A lot of times, you don't 100% know what's working and what's not. And you have to find ways to, focus on achievable goals, as well as create direct relationships with people. I can't stress that enough. I think that's been part in some sort of fundamental belief is value of things like Facebook is those lookalike audiences. Once you have data, but you need to create your own data first. And so that's so much of what we believe is going to be the value here is finding new ways to create that and to provide people a way to convert at basically shorter distances. So not all the way to purchase, but smaller places along there. So the things that you can do to best get your conversion data is verify your domain with Facebook as soon as possible. You can do that through the business manager. You can integrate that Facebook API to your website. And then when available, prioritize your own optimization events and ad managers. Again, we hear that there's going to be like 8 of these that you can do. It's unclear how statistically that will work with the people that aren't on, opted in to IDFAs. And so there may only be one conversion. Maybe you pick, there'll be like a primary, secondary. I don't know, I'm making this up because I don't know. But what I do know is that you won't be able to see all the way down for a lot of people. And if your customer is primarily iOS, which I know a lot of D2C is, you're gonna, need to find ways to find that optimization event further up in your funnel. So what do you see if you start seeing that quality traffic decline here? Well, consider revamping what your funnel looks like. Make it more nuanced, have more steps in it, use less expensive campaigns, things with cheaper CPMs, to drive your awareness and warm up, create retargeting pools on specific platforms before trying to bring people off them. There's also going to be probably a world where Facebook itself becomes a marketplace and will allow you to run ads and have conversion happen on their platform. That hasn't happened yet. You can obviously sell through Facebook, but they haven't hooked it up to their ad platform yet. That's likely going to happen. Again, Facebook's probably not. They're publicly showing they're really worried about this, but I'm sure they have a few tricks up their sleeve. So rethinking your acquisition funnel. We're just going to show you some thoughts that we have around how we're thinking about this. But basically, before, this is an example of what it would look like on Facebook, where you could run a full purchase campaign prospecting new users that have never heard of your brand, following them all the way down from the first time they saw you to buying on a platform like Shopify. It's going to be in this world where we need to have probably 1 to 2 level kind of conversion optimizations happen. So can we drive people to give us your phone number? Can you create, it's almost more like lead gen, how a B2B business works, is the world that we're potentially going into, where you're focusing on own channels and first party data to build those relationships. So it means, again, if someone just met you, it's going to be hard to ask for that information. So that's why engaging them for a while on the platform before asking for that is probably a good idea. It's also, again, these are hypotheses, but it's also potentially a good idea to ask for, what's that, people are going to, the data layer and opting into communication is going to be something that we have to create a value for. Why am I giving you my phone number or my email address? Like, why would I do that unless you can provide me something of value besides just the product? Because I'm not going to buy that from you. And then, like I said, there's probably a world where Facebook connects all the dots there in their own so that they can own that whole ecosystem. It's going to be a black box. You're not going to be able to get to know much about it. They're going to only share what they want to about it, but potentially it might be inexpensive because it'll all happen on their platform and they can follow everything about it. So there may be pros and cons to it, and that similar to how Amazon works, it's going to be you and your business to see what that looks like. So I'm going to show you a few of this. These slides are super dense, but you can always follow up with me after this if you want to talk more about the funnel, or I can share this with you because it's going to be a dense slides to look at. But this just give you an example of how we're thinking about the funnel. Our funnel, we used to have really just like 2 or 3 sections to it. We're breaking out in more nuanced areas. The new one that we're adding in here is this what we're calling upper layer of the funnel. And really what that is we see kind of a transition from, especially if you're an e-commerce company, you're going from platform lists where people maybe just know who you are and know about your brand to engagement on third-party platforms, following you on Facebook, engaging with you there on Instagram, looking at your reels, whatever you're doing, and bringing you down into own channels on places like Shopify or CRM, that kind of stuff. The warm is the new one here because warm is a thing that used to, it was all about getting clicks to your site or bringing people to your environment directly. And that's going to be harder to optimize for in the long run. So finding ways to engage people directly there before doing it. Again, these are hypotheses. Design for those jumps between platforms are really important because that's where you lose data. So you have to have a way to collect data at each jump between that. And so the biggest jump we're saying is happening here, where you go from a platform to more of an owned environment. And so we've come up with some names for these, going from unaware to similar to prospects, coming down to an aware person who knows your brand, they're familiar to them, engaged. Again, I know this is super dense. Then you have a jump to your website, right? So this is where someone's a visitor or a lead. You've given me your information, your email, your that. Some of this, is pretty classic. I think just the difference is really this idea of warming people up on platforms before going, as I've said. So again, test breaking out this, create these more sophisticated steps along your funnel and warm audiences before inviting them to give you their data. Because if you just send them to your site, you're not going to know anything about them. In this future world. And then, there's obviously KPIs that can go to each of these, but again, what's made Facebook so valuable is that they've been able to, create cross KPIs like ROAS and CAC. And so these out of the box KPIs are going to be misleading because just again, who's going to click to your site versus who's actually a real customer. Those are, especially like if you're a luxury brand, you got this like beautiful product. A lot of people are interested in it, but maybe they aren't actually your customer because they can't afford it or whatever. So those KPIs can be misleading. And so you have to find your own ways to create these sort of cross-level KPIs that go down it for like CPAs for specific actions, which could go anywhere to just lead gen to all the way down. But you've got to create your own methods to doing that and finding those data points along the way to be able to do that. And then campaign kind of structures as well. So can you test those with different goals? It's more about breaking them out. Again, Facebook over the past few years have been all about consolidate, put everything into one campaign, let the machine learning do that. it's yet to be seen how the machine learning algorithms are going to affect with this world. And it's best to make sure you're testing and learning different methodologies to be able to see what's actually going to work for you at an effective and cheap base. And this is a lot, again, very focused on Facebook, but this is going to be true in some regards to the other platforms as well out there. So
we're also, I know this is a very dense slide. We will be sharing these slides with everyone on our newsletter list. So subscribe to the Part and Some newsletter and you will definitely get these.
So what does this mean for your own channels? Well, we have some ideas of things to just start thinking about. So what if you gave people new reasons to opt in for email or SMS? Huckberry does this, as well do others. Maybe it's a community, maybe there's exclusive content, maybe there's being part of a club, maybe, Amazon Prime, you pay to be a part of something outside of it. What is it for your business as a way of a low-hanging reason to give that information exchange because that information exchange isn't happening other places now. So that way you can have an ability to reach back out to people. What does this mean for own channels? As well as this is an example of a friend of ours, Hatch Collection. They, in their email capture, ask a few little questions to find out. It's a maternity wear company that also sells for even if you're not pregnant, but also maternity items are giftable as well. So someone that's coming for a gift might be buying it for someone else. And so being able to collect a little bit of information up front about your customer, some key indicators, again, allows you to make better lookalike audiences, retarget them differently, and get a little more granular. You don't have to get probably crazy granular, but you do need to know more about your customer always, because that's like the name of the game in business, is know more about what's going on. And then what does this mean for other own channel things that you can do? So this one, something we recommend anyways, creating more custom landing pages. This one's from Harry's, but again, you can create these opt-in environments that are very focused around specific use cases. Again, if we get into a world where we can only contextually or affinity-based targeting, then we need to make landing experiences even more robust for those folks. So I know it's a lot I ran through. I hopefully didn't go too deep or too high level for you. I want to give everyone time to talk about their questions that they have with our expert panel that we have here. But the big thing is don't panic. I think a lot of this will be wait and see, but I think this is the future that we're headed towards. And I think there's a lot of good for users in this. And we've seen the power that the big platforms have over a lot of things. It just means that it's complex and it's not set and forget. And it does mean that it's something that you have to keep your mind on it, right? So on the phone with me, if you guys want to turn on your video, I have Anat, Senior Strategist, Julie, obviously, Managing Director, Elliot, Senior Technologist, and Jesse, Technologist. Oh, nice branded backgrounds. Very cool. Elliot, yours is mirrored. That's okay. Maybe you're mirrored too. I'll leave this up to this is like a summary of everything. But let's answer some of these questions. What questions do you have for us, Julie?
Yeah. So we did have a technical glitch, which means that Anat is actually going to be reading out the questions.
All right, Anat, what questions do we have?
Oh, wait, we can't see the panelist. Our viewers can't see the panelist.
Okay. I will, this is probably because they're not talking, but I will, let me stop screen sharing. We'll share that afterward as well. But here's the panelists.
Am I still mirrored?
Yes.
Yep, you're there. Anat, what questions do you have for us?
All right. So first question from Jeremiah Rosen. What if we stockpile a bunch of lookalike audiences for later use? Can we do that, or do they become a moot point? I love this because we all know that lookalike audiences are money. So is there anything we can do now to kind of safeguard ourselves for the future? Pass that one to Elliot.
So I would say for now, your lookalikes are going to continue to perform, and into the near future, because of all the data points that a platform like Facebook has access to when we're building those lookalike audiences. The problem is, as Facebook loses access to all these granular data points across apps, it's possible that lookalikes could become less and less effective. So even though you might have a great lookalike now, it might not perform at the same level in the future. So that's why we're advocating for just keep kind of a holding pattern run campaigns as you've always been running them and see how the implications of this change. We're something like 2 weeks after this iOS 14 update hits, then we'll start really making decisions about like changing our campaign structure in terms of optimization goals. Are we going to prioritize traffic or engagement or lead gen? Or is it the case that because it's predicted that maybe 10% of people will opt in to tracking across apps, but for those that opt out, we'll still be able to optimize for one conversion event based on the priority. So if our goal is to drive purchases, but we don't achieve a purchase with our conversion campaign, we still can potentially
and he froze.
We're losing you.
Will outperform. I'm sorry?
Can you repeat yourself? We lost you for a second.
Oh, yeah. So I was just saying that we'll still be able to optimize for conversion events, and we'll have to choose level of priority. If it's purchase, we'll go for that purchase. But if we don't achieve purchase for those who have opted out, because we only will be limited to one conversion event, we still may be able to achieve and report on and optimize for and add to cart based on the level of priority of our 8 conversion events. So it's, for now, we're recommending to continue running with the lookalikes as you always have. And then once performance changes after the iOS 14 shift, then we'll start making shifts in terms of optimization, targeting, and goals for campaign objectives.
Okay, so just to recap, keep them running for now. And, you know, that kind of fits into the bucket of don't panic just yet, worry about it later, see what happens. But in terms of gathering a whole bunch of data for audiences we could use in the future, that's going to be a moot point. Great. All right. So next question comes from Jenny McCoy. Do we actually think that this will have a bigger impact on small businesses versus large brands, or is that just a feel-good message from Facebook? So however you think about what Facebook actually cares about, I think the answer to this is actually yes, it will have a bigger impact on small businesses. And the reason that is because you have to think about the difference between how small businesses use Facebook versus how large businesses use Facebook. So a lot of what Jim was saying was that Facebook will still be really good for on-platform action. So Facebook will still know if you're viewing a video or if you're liking a post or something like that. And those are all tend to be upper funnel metrics. Where we're going to lose visibility is anything that's going to be occurring on a site or, you know, off-platform essentially. So when we think about how smaller advertisers use Facebook, a lot of those are using them for lower funnel metrics. And those are the things we're going to lose visibility with. Whereas a brand like Coca-Cola only really needs Facebook for something like awareness and reach, because that's what there's, you know, that's how they structure their engagements. So part of what we're going to have to do in response to this is think about how Facebook plays a role in our overall marketing funnel and what we can do in order to compensate for that. A question from Belinda. So if we have to limit the number of ad creatives, what type of messaging or images do we think we should be prioritizing for future creative? That's a good question. I actually want to pass this one to Jim.
I mean, I think it's going to continue to be a test and learn. I think, again, with where you're at, I'd stay with the learnings that you have. And if you have well optimized, strong creative in market, I'd keep that in market. I think the challenge will be as you potentially need to break out your funnel and deconsolidate your campaigns and look for things like lead gen and other methods of engagements, those will probably need whole new messages. I don't know many small businesses in the e-commerce space that have run lead gen style campaigns, and you'll need to create a reason for that value exchange that, like, do you have a great blog and some great content and some of it's exclusive? Like, what is that going to be? Those will be net new areas to break into. And so these might be fun conversations to start thinking about and to brainstorm with your team around. You know, I don't think there's a harm in thinking about that type of work probably works well for, you know, VIP programs and other things that
Mm-hmm.
your business may be thinking about loyalty already. So I don't think it'll be harmful. It's just how urgently do those things need to happen? Those we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. And for Belinda, I know Belinda works with a lot of D2C apparel companies. And so, you know, one experiment might be, you know, what kind of creative assets are driving to our store, but then also how do we optimize for shopping on Instagram as well, and seeing how that works and which one is more efficient with your marketing dollars.
So we have a technical question from Aaliyah. Is the Facebook API essentially replacing the Facebook pixel? Do I wipe the pixel off of my site now that I have the API? So great question. I want to pass it to Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that they're getting rid of in the privacy is like the cross domain, like passing privacy data. So the pixel's not going to be it's not going to be able to track as much information from people that opt out. So if you can move to the API, I mean, and it's only a conversion API, so
But
you're
we
only
still
going to
want both, right? Like
What?
we want both. They do two different things. It's just that I'm going to say how I think of it, and then Jesse, you can tell me if this is right, please. They do two different things where the pixel is tracking across browsers, and then the API is tracking conversions. And it's just that since the pixel will be unfortunately less valuable now, the API becomes more valuable. But we still want both installed, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you could also go like we went the route with some of the clients where we went to segment, where like with the new version of segment, we're not passing for anybody that's opted out. They're already not passing the IDFA. So yeah, I mean, you're anonymizing the data, so you're already within Apple's privacy policy. So and then the conversion pixel, you know, you can close the bottom of the funnel and the conversions with send it back to Facebook. So you still get some of the data, but you don't get you can't tell exactly who it is, but you can tell what people did.
And the way I like to think about it is that the pixel is more browser level, and the
Yep.
We may not see them in Ads Manager attributed to the campaign, but we can still see them in Events Manager. So it's better to at least be able to see that the conversions are happening, whether or not we can attribute them to the actual ad impression.
Right.
So question from David regarding having multiple advertisers driving to a single domain. So how will the domain verification and priority events flow affect multiple advertisers? So let's say you have 10 different companies and they all send traffic to example.com. What will example.com need to do in order to get those individual advertisers the information that they need via Business Manager? I'm going to pass that one to Elliot.
So the limit will be per domain. So as far as we understand, there will be an 8 conversion event limit per domain. So if everyone is running, all these different advertisers are driving traffic and optimizing for conversions for that same domain, then the events would in theory have to be shared. Because the priority tool for in Events Manager, and when you choose which conversion that you care about most, that's not released yet. So we don't know what that'll look like across a number of advertiser accounts that are all targeting the same domain. So we're not sure about that yet, but as far as we understand, the conversion event limit will be for each domain. So they would have to share.
Would a tool like Segment help streamline this, since Segment has the pipes to send it to multiple different end sources?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Segment, you build your standard events. So you could build the 8 events, and then instead of each advertiser sending, instead of doing it on building the events on each advertiser and then them taking the data, you build it one time and then you send the data wherever you want. And you can anonymize it, and then it sets it up so you can, GDPR and all of that data deletion things that is coming.
events in segment and send the same conversion events to Google, for instance, to Pinterest, for instance. So it's not limited to just one platform as it would be if you use the Facebook pixel alone for a conversion event.
But I mean, it's kind of the same thing that Google with their G4 tag is going to the same thing. It's all event driven now as opposed to sessions and kind of just tracking everything. So you have to build the events you want to track and then go after that.
By the way, I want to state that we are not owned by Segment. We don't have a special relationship with them. We just like using new tools that help us out.
Yeah, you could also use Amplitude or Heap or insert customer data platform name.
Yeah. So a question from Kushal. So for those of us who, rely on that longer attribution window, and now all of a sudden it's been flipped, but if I have to compare my year-over-year data, how do I begin to do that? So it's important to note that all of your historical data, so anything that was captured before the attribution change, that's all going to stay the same. It's within the same attribution window. If you want to do a apples to apples type comparison, there is an attribution tool in Business Manager that you can play with, or you could play with the same data within Google Analytics. If you're using a platform like Data Studio, you could actually switch up your attribution model if you want to stick to the old attribution model. That's all the questions we have. And 2 minutes to spare. Any final thoughts?
I do think that this is all going to be changing as it comes along, because when it first launched, like searchengineland.com said like no more data is going to be available. That's why there's a big push to like download old historical data with the current attribution model. So it's going to be like a wait and see, stay up to date.
Okay.
So
keep calm.
Still be able to access conversion.
Yeah.
Keep calm, see what happens. Don't make any rash decisions until you actually see what happens. But this is a great opportunity to think about how we can continue to activate our customers on our own channels, diversify our advertising channels, because this is, only the beginning in a big sweep of changes that we think are coming. And we just need to prepare ourselves to rely less on these performance-based platforms.
So thanks everyone for joining. We'll be sharing out this document as well as a write-up of everything on this to everyone on the email list from here. Feel free to reach out with any additional questions or any of our clients that are on the phone. You'll be having, of course, one-on-one time with your strategist to walk you through as these changes happen. And we'll let you know as we'll probably maybe do another event or something like this. This is our first one. And as we learn more. So thank you all, and have a good rest of your day.